Hello, everybody. How are we all doing today? Excuse me. Oh, there we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our beautiful Thursday, our Facebook Live. Let's see if we can get all of these comments going. See if I can see everybody as they come in. Hope for the best, because, that's the way it goes for me. Oh my goodness. You'd think at some point this would just get easier or something, but here we go. It just is what it is, so we're just going to accept it. If you are jumping on, let me know you're here so that I can see you and hear your say hello. And if you've got any comments, then being able to chat together and bring that in. Let's see here. It is not connecting yet, but that's all right. We'll see if we can get it to work in a minute. All right, we'll jump in. Welcome. I'm excited to be here, our Awakening Circle on Thursdays. Today we are talking a bit about the feminine pain body, and my reasoning for this is, if you've been following along with me, I have been on this incredible journey for the last 8 years, really, but this last year especially has been, 2025 really, has been a fascinating year. And it's been fascinating because my mom passed away, and when she passed away, it left a whole bunch of trauma, I guess we're going to say, or it allowed me to heal a bunch of work, do a bunch of work with her as she passed, and then be able to open up and do my own expansion work and step into, who am I meant to be in this world? What would it look like if I didn't play small? And I mean, I think it's a beautiful question that each of us can ask, because often there is a fear of ridicule or rejection that will keep us small. And so, but where does it all come from? And so what has been fascinating is in that journey, oh yay, there we go. Hello, Laura. Oh my goodness. Yay. Hello, Denise. Okay, good. I can see everybody coming in. Love when something works for us. So the feminine pain body. So with all of that expansion work has been this really fascinating journey of, all of a sudden I was being guided to listen to Eckhart Tolle. And I, before this, could not listen to any of his books. I couldn't read any of his books. His voice would put me to sleep. I just couldn't do it. And my husband read all of his books years and years ago before we even started dating. And so then I was like, why can't I read this stuff? Anyways, as soon as my mom passed away, I was literally like, the next day I finished a book that I'd been listening to. I started listening to The Way of Integrity, got kind of the download, the clearance, like your Contrarian soul guide. Stop trying to play small, stop trying to be softer, stop trying to, compare yourself to everybody else. And like most people, when we compare ourselves to other people, often we find ourselves falling short. And so, that is what was there. Hello, Bobby. And so I did that. I was comparing myself to other spiritual teachers, and I was like, but I'm not as educated as them. I don't have as much experience. And meanwhile, the universe was like, I've been giving you all of the experience. And we don't see that sometimes. We think like, I need to go through school. And I clued in recently that part of that system is that we get positive feedback or negative feedback, but we're getting feedback that is giving us permission. And so without that, then we're kind of left with our higher self to give us permission to do things. And so in this journey of the last 6-7 months after my mom passed, it's been this exploration of like, who am I? And then giving myself permission to really step into my full expression. And it's been a journey. There's a lot of little gremlins. My neurotic inner roommate, as I like to call that voice in my head, is being pretty, it goes, ebbs and flows on its aggression. It's gotten pretty loud over this last little bit, especially as I accept kind of this next phase of my life. And so while I was away in Greece, or sorry, I'll finish that. So I was reading The Way of Integrity. I got the Contrarian Soul Guide, that I was to be a spiritual teacher and really step into this role. And then I was given these two books by Eckhart Tolle. And the first one was A New Earth, and the second one is The Power of Now. And I have not been able to listen to another Audible book other than those two books for the last 4 months. And so I finished one and it's the other one. And it's just like back and forth and back and forth. And what was fascinating is, as I was listening to it with my husband, we were driving one day, and this realization as we chatted, that this is all stuff that I was given these downloads, this information way back at the very beginning when I first had my head injury and started listening or reading The Course in Miracles and doing the 365 days of lessons. And so all of this information had been being downloaded to me for the last 8 years, and I just wasn't trusting myself, trusting my intuition, or trusting what I was hearing, because I kept saying, "Oh, it can't be me. It can't be something like what I don't have the education, I don't have the backup." And so I really doubted myself, and it gave space for a lot of gremlins. And so in this journey, the first journey that I was given was to understand that when we're reading something, a lot of work out there, spiritual work, refers to God or source or spirit, universe, whatever, but as a he. And so as I was beginning the Course in Miracles, it was this really clear understanding about a month in that was like, you don't need to change, God to goddess, he to she. That actually isn't going to help the world, because we're just going to swing the pendulum from patriarchy back to matriarchy. And we're going to keep having this issue if we keep playing this game. And so understanding that we needed to come to the realization it's a harmony. We need to reharmonize our divine feminine and our divine masculine that's within us. And we have both aspects in us, not just one. And it's not gender specific. So men have divine feminine and divine masculine, and so do women. And the problem has been that we've been suppressing women, and then we suppressed the divine feminine for the last 2,000 years. And not only did women suppress their divine feminine instincts, but so did men. And that was the rise of patriarchy, and how our ego started to really come into seniority, I guess, in our lives. It got to take over. And then in that takeover is being this real difficulty to find our true essence, our light that exists within us, that is our true aspect of ourselves, and then give rise to that voice again, which is much quieter, but it's also more powerful. And so while this one screams and rants and chants and does all the chaos of mob mentality, this one is patient and loving and kind and present. And so when I was in Greece, I got this really clear experience. I went and left with, I had 3 expectations. One, I thought I was working, and so my expectation was I was going to be writing my book every day to finish it. And that my 2 personal intentions that I went there for was full embodiment and expansion. And I scared myself with expansion, because I was like, oh gosh, what is that going to mean? Can I hold that space? And my big fear that most people don't know about is I have a real fear of my ego being able to morph and shift into a spiritual ego. And so, and in doing that, if a spiritual teacher, then I was really scared that I would do harm. And to make sure, like, how do I make sure my ego stays out of my work? That I don't, let it get filled up. Like, yeah, you're the teacher. And it's like, no, I'm the conduit. I'm just here. I just work here, and energy's just running through me. We all have access to this. It's not that I'm not special, it's that we're all special. And, changing this language, we all are channels. And so we each channel different energies. So some people will be channels of divine power, some will be channels of divine love, and there's so much beauty in each of them. But it's just embracing it and coming into those realizations. First came to me through an amazing woman, Fiona Black, who was a coach of mine for a while, and she really helped me get into my heart and start to play into that divine feminine. And so really beautiful teachings and support through that. And she does, I think she still does them, Akashic Records. And so her coming through is like, you are a channel of divine power. And then later on, also working Carissa Brockman, who does Akashic Records a little differently. It's more of a channel style, and her coming to me with the same thing. And so trying to trust instead of needing constantly this confirmation from everybody else. And so as we move forward into this, it brings us into today's thing, which is about the divine feminine, which is when I was in Greece, I wanted this embodiment and this expansion, and I was really worried about my ego being involved. And as soon as I arrived, or actually as soon as I left, the journey began. And the two words that came through the whole traveling there was stillness and presence. And if I listened to stillness and presence, it was like this really cool feeling. I get it when I'm in meditation, when I hit that zone where you're everything and nothing. And so you just feel like just so open. And that's how I felt the whole time when I left. And it was beautiful. And it allowed me to be present and available in every moment to those that I was with, including myself. So I did a bit of writing, but I had no access to doing any of the work. No Facebook lives, no social media lives, no nothing. I could do a bit of video, do a couple of posts, but that was it. Other than that, it was like, you are all about integration here. And I understand now that expanding and doing at the same time is a very difficult thing. And so as I came back, I got to continue to experience that. And then it wobbled on me about a week ago. And I started to struggle with the anxiety and these little gremlins coming up. But one of the things that arrived while we were there was this clear, actually it happened before I left, but it was really clear while I was there, the imperativeness of the divine feminine. And so it was like this constant reiteration, and I realized that was part of Eckhart Tolle's teachings that I needed to hear. Is I've been given all of these pieces of information, and now I was being given an opportunity to listen from, a mentor and a master of what it looks like for us to reactivate the divine feminine, not only in us women, but in men as well. And what that means is the divine feminine is really about our physical connection, our somatic experience. Because our heart, our soul, our spark lives in our heart, which is encased in the body, and it is our greatest entry point into it. And so it also allows us to really connect with the earth. So anything that is manifested or is in manifestation. So just think like when we're birthing, it's in gestation or we're birthing into life. And that is the energy of the yin, the energy of the divine feminine that we each have. And there's always the energy of the masculine within that. Energy of the masculine is potential. It is the sun versus the earth. It is, the heat and the drive versus the calm and the presence. And so, but they need to exist together. So you don't want just drive without presence. You don't want just presence without movement. So we need this harmonization to happen within ourselves. And so that's where a lot of when you hear people talking about doing womb work, we're going to heal the womb, and the divine feminine really sits heavily within that second center. And so working within our bodies and getting gut instincts, trusting our intuition again. Those are all ways that we play within the divine feminine. And understanding that nothing is ever broken. We can suppress, but it can never break. Like our light continues to be whole and bright, no matter how many shadows are sitting in front of it. The sun keeps shining no matter how many clouds there are. And if you think of every one of our dramas and traumas that we have as like a cloud inside of us or in our energy field, the light's still shining at full brightness. We just need to clear that away. And it doesn't have to be this big, long process. It can be choice. And it's a choice that we keep picking over and over and over again. And there's ways that we can support ourselves to keep making those choices, to keep supporting ourselves, to keep showing up light and full of life, even when it's difficult out, and how we can support each other through that process as well. So in the New Earth, I was just looking at my notes. In the New Earth, the Eckhart Tolle really talks about the pain body, and he explains the pain body as like this subtle body that is made up of our dramas and traumas. And so, like in body code, this would be where we hold all of our obstacles and imbalances in our body, and so that pain body distorts the light body. So you have these two bodies that kind of overlay each other. And so there's this distortion from the pain body. And our ego, identification with form, thought form, physical form, and emotional form, including our beliefs, our desires, our our objects, our things, our home, all that kind of stuff, our relationships, as well as our experiences, our memories. And so those all make our ego. Who am I? You describe yourself based on those things. And so within that kind of gives us like, this is who I am, but we're not. We're the essence, the soul, the light body that is experiencing those things, that is enlivening those things. But that's not who we are. Those are the things we experience. We experience our thoughts. We experience our emotions. As a matter of fact, we often will say, well, I think, and you're like, oh, do you? Or are you like, thinking's happening and you're aware of it? Do you digest? Like, oh, I digest my food. Do you think about that? Like you actively digest your food? Or is that a process that's happening that you're experiencing? And so a lot of these things are really interconnected to the wisdom that's deeply embedded in our cells, and we just forget it. And so to become conscious again means to remember, to become aware once again. And when we say things like the unconscious mind, the egoic mind, or the habitual conscious mind, we're talking about that illusion that we get caught up in this world all around us that we're not. And so the pain body, so the light body is made up of divine energy, feminine and masculine. Ego comes along and starts to suppress that energy so it has more power. And it's a bit of a power struggle that's happening, a battle of wills, as I talked about this morning in my Mystic Mornings. And so we have this battle of wills that's happening. We get the suppression and we have the rise of patriarchy. And so our bodies, if you think about it, if your body's ever exploded with emotion, I said, if your body's ever exploded with emotion you can't explain, this is really for you. So if you're told you're too sensitive, you're too intense, which is what people tell me all the time, then it was really never about you. It's the pain body that's rising up. And so we in ourselves in our natural state are really calm. We're very grounded. We have great abiding joy. There's just beauty and awe and everything. And so it's this really beautiful feeling that we get to live in, which is what I got to experience in Greece. And then when our pain body reactivates, then we have this emotion that comes up. And so the pain body is not only made up of your own dramas and traumas, there's also the familial, so ancestral or epigenetics. And so it's in your that cellular kind of connected to the family ring. It is society or community based as well. So the pain body of your country, the pain body of the gender. So there's still like the women's pain body, and then there's the divine feminine pain body. And so, you know, when we feel shame for overreacting, for having our emotions, these are all parts of the divine feminine being suppressed. When we are expected to numb our grief so we don't make other people feel uncomfortable, it's a suppression of the pain of the divine feminine. Divine feminine feels. And so these emotions are there, but they're meant to rise, be processed, and released. When we suppress them and they come up, it's like an eruption, and we end up spewing onto the people around us. And that's the part that we don't want to be doing. That's where we end up creating chaos in our world. We have the suppression, the buildup, and the blow, and we have chaos that's raining all around us. No different than a volcano exploding in the middle of a town. And it happens, that town just happens to be our home, our workplace, the grocery store, wherever it happens to be. And so understanding that when these feelings come up, it's not that we're broken. It's that we need to allow them to rise and to start to soften against them again, to give them some space. And so if you think of that pain body as emotional trauma that feeds, now this is fascinating, it feeds, it's active, it feeds on more trauma. So this is why anger will magnetize to anger, because it feeds off of each other. So you get that mob mentality where people are feeding off of each other's negativity. You can get the positive side as well, where you put positive people together and they just feel like their cup's filled up. And I'm like, it's not that the other person filled their cup, it's that they didn't drain or take, so their cup was able to be full. And so that's the case when we're around people that aren't draining us. We don't have that negativity or that pull and draw like a vampire. Instead, we get this building up here. In the women, though, we also have the collective pain body. And men have a collective pain body as well. Women's has just been going on for a few thousand years, and this is part of our journey that we've come here to work through. And this is part of our purpose. Know thyself, embody thyself, and help others do the same. And so the healing of the feminine pain body isn't just for me to do, it's for each of us to do. And so, and it seems like a big task, but if we do it together, it's kind of like many hands make light work. And so if we're doing the healing of the feminine pain body in a joint way, then we have that tribal collective that heals at a far greater speed, because we are, more willing to put that baggage down instead of identifying with the baggage. And so ego can feed off of the pain body, and pain body feeds off ego. So they're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like when you get like a vine that will feed off of a tree, and so parasitic, there we go. So the ego and our pain body are both very parasitic. And so they feed not only off each other, but they'll antagonize and feed off of other people as well. And so we create this chaos in us, and it expands around us. And so understanding that, it's a collective, this pain body, especially in women, and it's passed down and then lived out. And the feminine pain body often shows up in suppression, in rage, in unexplainable grief, as well as deep, deep resentment. And so those are ways that we'll experience that pain body. And then she speaks through the body when the mind won't listen. And so if you think about like one of the places that Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body really showing up is that we see the activation of the collective female pain body at the time of menstrual cycles, when all of a sudden there's all this rage, and you can see it like as soon as you like, oh yeah, right. Like, why is that as soon as we start going through the female cycle, this divine feminine energy, that all of a sudden all this rage and irritation or weeping and grief, all the emotions I just said are very connected to it. And it's because we get this activation of the divine, of the pain body during that time. And so, the pain body isn't personal. I mean, part of it will be, there'll be part of it, but the feminine, the divine feminine pain body is ancestral. We've been carrying it for generations. It's simply that we each keep coming back. Then we fall asleep. Before we come into our bodies, we're like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm up to the task. And then we hit our bodies, get our families, and then all of a sudden we fall asleep and we think our bodies, and we start perpetuating the same looping patterns again. And we've set ourselves up. We've got contracts, these little crystals, these little awakening points. People where you see something, you're like, oh, that feels right. And it might be a book or a podcast or a movie or a person. And it's like, wait. And it's like we purposely set this up in contracts with each other to reawaken, to remember ourselves. And within that self, then we also remember each other. And then we start to be able to heal this collective pain body as a whole. And as a whole, we do it in completeness, which is freaking beautiful. And so understanding that when this pain body does get activated, we're not overreacting. This is a welling up. It's like this volcano that needs to blow. And so we're carrying what has not been allowed to be expressed for generations. And so if you've got somebody like one of my mom's core values was dignity. It's not that we spoke about it, but you could see it. She showed it all the time. And in that dignity is containment. And so before I was born, she had lost a child. She had a stillbirth. And it was never discussed. We weren't even allowed to say it was named Michael, and we were never even allowed to say the name. My family actually got in a lot of trouble from even finding out about it. And so, it was funny because I needed to know about it because it actually affected a whole bunch of things after I'd lost children that allowed me to find out I had a genetic blood disorder that, helped me be able to get the right medical attention to be able to have my son. But she wouldn't talk about it. And the very idea that we had a blood disorder was not acceptable. So it was really fascinating. It was very contained. And so for her, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of grief that she was carrying in her body. And then, her pain body would get activated by me, and my pain body would get activated by her. And you're living in a small little apartment, and you have a bit of a blow up waiting to happen. And so it's an interesting way even to look at our relationships that we have, especially mothers through daughters and aunts and grandparents. Like, what is that? And so a lot of what we're experiencing now isn't just our grief, our pain, our shame. It's also that of all these generations before us for thousands of years. And so understanding that that's what's trying to rise up. But if we can do it consciously with intention, then we actually can safely start to off gas it, where we can start to let it kind of move through, to transition, because it's not here to destroy us. It's here to liberate us. That's what I mean. When we heal this, when we work through this as a whole, we become liberated. And in that liberation, we have sovereignty. We have to be self-realized. All of a sudden, we're making decisions based on love and compassion and kindness and caring and clarity versus, anger, resentment, judgment, grief, shame, and all the rest of them. And so that is what happens when we start to liberate through these pieces. So what happens when we don't acknowledge her? We start numbing out. So when we don't want to feel this, and you think about this, whether you feel physical pain, emotional pain, or mental pain, we begin the numbing process. I was just working with somebody earlier, and this was the discussion. It was like, there's just too much pain here. I need to go watch a movie. And I'm like, you don't. You just need to be here with it. That's the contrarian in me. So welcome to the journey. So I'm like, no, we can actually just be here and be in pain. And the idea of it is appalling. Now, I've done it for myself for the last, solidly for the last 8 years, about 12, 13 years since I really started working in here and exploring it. 8 years, it's been a hardcore go time of going through this. And so, when we don't acknowledge it, we numb out. That looks like scrolling social media. It looks like watching TV, especially TV that is violent or negative or lots of drama. That is all feeding our pain body. Overworking. So trying to just make everything out there be a thing. People pleasing. All those things feed our pain body and feed our ego. And so all those things are what happen when we don't acknowledge it. And then the other things that will happen is we can have explosive emotional releases at inappropriate times. And I know I have certainly been there where I have blown up, and it's I can't explain it, and I've gone through all the shame and all of the guilt and everything from those blow-ups as well. So that's a thing that can happen, as well as self-silencing. So this is because we internalize that our emotions are dangerous. And think about, so all of a sudden we start suppressing, and so we just keep going with that cycle, and we just make it worse and worse and worse. And the pain body doesn't need fixing. She needs to be felt. And this is what I wrote. So she needs to be felt fully, safely, and without shame. And so be careful. Warning. If we do this and we identify with it, we actually flip it and go back into the pain body again. So we want to feel it without shame and without identifying that, saying, this is me, I am this pain body. This is the pain body, and I'm experiencing it, and I'm experiencing this shame, this anger, this guilt, this sadness, this grief. Whatever comes up, we feel it, and we just soften and let it flow out of us. And then we just watch and notice what it shifts into. And so we stay completely present without letting the mind, the ego, start a story about why we have to go through this. And this is when we get a problem. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, the man, or patriarchy, or capitalism. And we are not helping. We are feeding the pain body again. That is not what we need. We need to come back to curiosity and compassion and reestablish this intimacy, this connection with our divine feminine, so that we can support our divine masculine, harmonize that, and then the harmony within us is what we ripple into this world all around us. This is how we create beautiful music together. And I said, when you suppress her, she doesn't die, she just leaks out sideways. And so you see this in a volcano. There's suppression, and all of a sudden there's a fissure and it cracks sideways. And we just start creating chaos in other ways. So you maybe don't have a blow, but what you will have is little passive-aggressive comments, little snarky remarks, little things that make other people feel kind of shitty around you. And as a great example, if you ain't lighting up the world, you might be making it a bit darker. And so that's one of the ways that the pain body comes out. And then she loves to justify it. And one of the things I said yesterday and today in my I'm doing these mystical mornings with Dawn live through Instagram and Facebook. They come on the recording, and so I do them every morning after I do my morning rituals. It's a little challenge to me because I had an old wound come up. Nobody wants to hear anything you have to say. And it's been a doozy. So the challenge was put to me to speak daily instead. So this is my way of playing through this. And so the speaker going off, and so going through these pieces, there's like these sideways. So if we don't blow up, sometimes we get super passive aggressive, and then we justify, and justification is a warning bell, and it's one we want to pay super 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 close attention to, because when we are justifying our behaviors, justification is a well thought out lie. Think about that. You justify being an asshole or putting somebody down because they were a dick. It's a lie. You're just perpetuating the pain you felt. You felt it, you're just blowing it back at them. That's what's happening. So we're just not letting, we want to get to benevolence. So watch justification. It is the sword of our ego. And so it's part of this battle of wills that we are in. And so we don't need to justify bad behavior. As a matter of fact, we need to go into it, acknowledge it, not give ourselves shit and shame for it, but start processing it and really just letting it go. I'm just like reading where to go, and then how to alchemize. So how do we come into continuing in through this alchemy? So we witness it, we don't manage it. We like want to watch and process in appropriate times, appropriate places. And this is the point, another reason why we have this group, like the Awakening Circle, this community was created to support each other as we go through this. This is a safe zone where we can say like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling all this rage today. Instead of, patting each other or doing that, is to be able to like, I see you, and be really present and hold that space for each other. And ask, is this my truth or is this my pain body? The moment we start asking, you'll start to notice which one it is. So the ego and the pain body, they kind of shift and pivot. When it's our truth, it's bringing us closer to love, closer to connection. It hits the 8 characteristics of our soul. So connectedness, clarity, compassion, courage, creativity, caring, calm, and confidence. I had to look. I always have them written in my office. And confidence. So those are the pieces that we'll tap into if it's our soul, if it's our truth. So is this about compassion? Is this about like connectedness? Are we cultivating community? That will let us know which place this is coming from. And we can guide through, use triggers as teachers and not proof that you're broken. So it's that twist of our story. And so when we think of this, like like I just said, I've been going through this wound that got activated last Saturday. And it's an old story that begins with the words, no one wants to hear what you have to say. It gets activated, so it started very young, probably ancestral. When we go back into, like, when I look back at my mom and my family, it's probably one of these deeper wounds. But it's been activated, and I have certain relationships in my life that activate it quite a bit. And all of a sudden it was like really brutal. And so I've spent Wednesday night with like it loud in my head. Nobody wants to hear you. You need to shut up. When you open your mouth, you look stupid. It was like intense. And even though I was aware of it, I just couldn't seem to get it to calm down. Like it took me about 2 hours to be able to breathe through and then finally be able to go to sleep. And the next morning, quite emotional as I started my coach we have a circle, and so started my coaching group and talked about it, and I'm like, this is the gremlins coming up, and then did some work together with it. And as we came through this, I was like, oh, I have certain relationships in my life that my theory, it's not even a theory, it's the principle, it's one of the principles. So the principles of magnetic attraction, everybody likes to use this one, like abundant mind attracts abundance. Angry people attract angry people. But we need to go deeper than that. So the anger within us is being mirrored outside of us, or we're perpetuating it outside of us. The other way to see this is that our higher self, or our soul, is drawing experiences to us so that it can bring these wounds to the surface and we can finally lance them off. And so once I started to think of it from this point of view instead, it was like, oh, it's not that, like, there's even a curiosity, like, will this relationship actually change as soon as I lance this off, because it won't be something that needs to be brought up anymore? I don't know. We'll find out. And so been working specifically on this thing about, children should be seen, not heard. Women should be seen, not heard. How about you just shut your mouth and look pretty? How about you try that? There's a lot of them. Like it goes on for years. And so working through these pieces, and it's like, okay, but we want to like use that trigger as not as proof that we're broken, but as a teacher. Like, oh, there it is. Here's some pain body. Let that rise up. Let the grief, let the guilt, the feeling of not being seen and heard, let it rise, and then let it flow out of you and just witness it. Not good or bad, no story attachment to it, no justification. Just let it rise and let it flow in an appropriate and respectful way. So it's not doing harm to people around us. Healing the feminine is not about silencing her. It's about listening without needing to rescue her. Let her come back. She is a powerful beast of energy. She creates life. She is so freaking powerful. So we don't need to rescue our divine feminine. We need to let her rise. And so that's what is really coming from here. And when you meet her with reverence, she becomes your oracle and not your oppressor. And so we don't shift into this matriarchy. Instead, we let it become the oracle. We open to our intuition, that intuitive sense that we feel deep in our bones, all of a sudden is available to us again. And so with that, it's that, you're not too much. You're just unleashing what was hidden. And that is our light. Our light is just hidden behind these little clouds, these little smudges. And it's just waiting to shine again. And so as we heal this sacred feminine energy, by letting her be there, by letting ourselves feel, coming back into our body. This is the purpose of like why things like yoga, especially like yin, restorative, somatics, Tai Chi, Qigong, like these somatic, slower experiences where we're being present in our body are really, really, really beneficial to healing the divine feminine. Because the divine feminine, we really connect through the physical form, through our heart and through our physical body, as opposed to being intellectual. Well, I think this, I know this. That's all in our masculine energy. We want to drop back into the feminine energy, breathe into the pelvis, drop the pelvic floor, and be present with our heart, with our emotions. What am I feeling right now? And let those pieces rise. And I said this is a sacred rage, a sacred grief, and a sacred remembering. So let them flow appropriately, but let them flow and go. Let them be able to release out of you. Be able to be that channel, that conduit of energy in the healing and the releasing of things. And this is a path of sovereignty, not bypassing, but integration. I would love to hear from you guys. What comes up for you when we think of our divine feminine? What wounds come up that you feel like, oh, this is something that I need to heal? And it might feel a little bit more aggressive than that when you're beginning this process. Just know that it's important that we don't work on shifting that blame back into the masculine, to men, to masculine, even towards the patriarchy. The patriarchy dies by us ignoring it in many ways. It doesn't mean like letting it go and behave the way it does. It means by not feeding it, not giving it our power. And so when we rise this in and hold that space, it starts to disintegrate. It can't hold up. It needs us to feed it. And so the more that we're raising this up, the more we're coming from the compassion, the more that we're holding in that divine energy, the greater the healing will happen. And the longer, like we'll be able to actually expand this and hold this and change this world, not only for our generation, but generations to come. We get to teach this to our children, not just our daughters, but our sons. Remember, these energies are in both of us. And so, yes, we have, as women, the divine feminine wound, the woman's wound, but this energy, this healing needs to happen in every gender, in every person worldwide. It's not just in one of us, it's in every single one of us. I hope you guys got benefit from this. I love being here with you. I'm back next Thursday, if not earlier. I'm considering, instead of doing my YouTubes that I do on Tuesday, I'm trying to figure it out for myself and my schedule, but even scheduling them in where I do that instead as a Facebook Live and then just put it onto YouTube for the Tuesday. So I'm just playing with that. We'll see how it goes. But I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what comes up for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the energy of and the divine feminine, and what rises for you about healing it. Because every one of you matters to me. I hope you have a fabulous day, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.